terrorists. Corruption, poverty, and dictatorships all have one thing in common. All of them ruin the life of ordinary people. And these are the four most horrific places for life on our planet. The first stop will be the failed oil empire, where huge mismanagement sent millions of people into poverty and forced them to escape the country. Welcome to Venezuela. There are three important years that changed Venezuelan history forever. The year of independence, the year when the first oil reserves were discovered, and the year when it all went wrong. After discovering the largest oil reserves in the world, Venezuela became what we today call a petrostate. Such country becomes so blinded by the new flow of income from oil or gas that it starts suppressing all other economic sectors. And Venezuela is the perfect example of this behavior, which left its economy dependent on the price of oil. The main problem emerges if you discover the oil before you have discovered democracy, because without a functioning state, the sudden inflow of wealth will likely end up in the pockets of those in the office. Between 1972 and 1997 alone, over $100 billion simply disappeared. Two most recent leaders of Venezuela made sure that it will stay like that. Hugo Chavez was the president of Venezuela for 14 years. He came with a promise to lower poverty, but left with successfully doubling the state debt, taking control of the Supreme Court, harassing the press, and nationalizing hundreds of private businesses. In other words, he laid out the foundation of successful dictatorship. These reforms made it easier for his successor Nicolas Maduro to deepen the authoritarian regime even more. Maduro consolidated power through political repression, censorship, and manipulation of the elections. Despite all of that, the oil was still somehow sticking the economy together until the year 2014. That year, oil prices tumbled and Venezuela's economy went into freefall. Since then, the quality of life in Venezuela plunged to the bottom. The inflation went crazy, peaking in February of 2019 at an unbelievable 344,000%. This madness caused huge shortages of essential goods, food and medicine, which forced over 8 million people to flee the country. As of today, more than 50% of Venezuela's population lives in poverty. Meanwhile, Maduro is still in office, even though his re-election in 2018 was widely condemned as unfair and undemocratic, and he has no plans on leaving. We, on the other hand, are leaving the American continent to a hot and vibrant Africa. Right in the heart lies the Central African Republic. There lives one of the poorest and unluckiest citizens in the world. 4.8 million people call this place home, which is unfortunately not the entire truth, as more than 700,000 people, or 20% of the population in this country, are registered as refugees. That means that they were forced to leave their houses and now live in a refugee camp with literally nothing. The main cause of their terrifying situation is the ongoing conflicts throughout the country. Since the independence from France in 1960, the Central African Republic hasn't found peace yet. Political instability, underdevelopment, and waves of violent conflict occur on a daily basis. This is a pattern for many post-colonial nations in Africa, as multiple distinct ethnic groups were suddenly locked up together in the new artificial borders the Europeans drew. Another division is between Islamic North and Christian South. However, relations between these two groups have mostly been harmonious. The targets of the violence are usually members of other ethnic groups. The rebels raid their village, poison their water source, and burn their houses, while the citizens run for life. Armed rebellious groups still control a big part of the country, which brings fighting over the power between the individual groups as well as inside of each group. The whole history of the country is basically only a series of fighting over power, followed by many armed coups. This sad reality left 85% of the population without electricity, and 3.1 million people now require humanitarian assistance, which is nearly 65% of the population. The hope came with democratic elections in 2021. However, since then the political power has been still largely limited. Flying over the Atlantic again, we move back to America. In the heart of the Caribbean lies the island, divided into two states, one prospering, while the other is in the middle of freefall. Spanish settlers conquered the island of Hispaniola in 1492, decimating the indigenous population with diseases such as smallpox or measles. In the early 17th century, French traders established an outpost on the western third of the island, splitting it into what is today Creole-speaking Haiti and Spanish-speaking Dominican Republic. During colonial times, European colonizers imported hundreds of thousands of enslaved people from Western and Central Africa for plantation work. Mostly descendants of these people make up today's 12 million population of Haiti. In 1804, it declared independence after a racial rebellion against French rule. However, France only recognized the independence 20 years later, after Haiti agreed to pay reparations that are estimated to be worth 21 billion in today's dollars. And Haiti remains heavily in debt until today, which is in combination with its political instability the perfect mix for disaster. Only since the independence, 9 politicians, from which 4 were presidents, were assassinated. The last president was assassinated in 2021, and since then the de facto president is the prime minister, as presidential elections haven't been held since 2017. But if you think that Haiti has already been unlucky enough, the worst is yet to come. Haiti is located probably on the worst place in the world. Its location on a geological fault line is prone to severe weather. One of the deadliest earthquakes in history hit Haiti in 2010, killing between 100,000 up to 300,000 people. Reconstruction after the damage cost more than $8 billion, which far exceeded its GDP. Among the other recent climate crises are severe drought between 2015 and 17, Hurricane Matthew, which decimated the country in 2016, or back-to-back disasters in August 2021, when a magnitude 7.2 earthquake destroyed 30% of local homes and killed over 2,000 people, only to be followed by destructional tropical storm Grace only a few days later. All of these events left Haiti as the Western Hemisphere's poorest country, with more than half of its population living below the poverty line. The power of gangs is rising every day. Just in the past months, gang members overpowered police in 2 main prisons and released dozens of their inmates, while they are shooting at the airplanes, which caused the complete stop of work of international airlines. One of the front gang leaders, nicknamed Barbecue, stated that his ultimate goal is to overthrow the government. And so, the Haitian future is unpredictable, and as everywhere, ordinary civilians are the biggest victims of that. Over 10,000 kilometers to the east lies one of the most troubled nations as of today, Afghanistan. Despite its long and culturally rich history, it ended up ranking as the most corrupted, least peaceful and least democratic country in the world. The estimate says that in 2022, 95% of Afghani citizens did not have enough to eat. The root of their trouble lies in the early 1990s, when a terrorist group known as the Taliban was founded by Islamic guerrilla fighters who had resisted the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. Following their rapid rise, they seized the capital Kabul in 1996 and declared Afghanistan an Islamic emirate. their regime quickly tightened up the rules, requiring women to wear the burqas, banned music and television, and jailed men whose beards seemed too short. Afghanistan quickly became a haven for terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda, which was behind the 9/11 attacks in New York. Following the Taliban's refusal to hand over the leader of the group, Osama bin Laden, the USA decided to step in, and in 2001 it invaded Afghanistan and quickly ousted the regime. Taliban leadership relocated to southern Afghanistan and across the border to Pakistan. The US-backed Afghan government was formed and efforts to stabilize the country were made. Meanwhile, Taliban continued fighting from their new head center, but weren't able to occupy large territories. The twist came in 2020, when the USA and Taliban signed a peace deal known as the Doha Agreement. Under the agreement, the United States pledged to withdraw all US and NATO troops, while in return the Taliban promised to prevent territory under its control from being used by terrorist groups and to enter negotiations with the Afghan government, which was naive to believe. Taliban's return to power was faster than everyone expected and was accompanied by very sad footage of desperate Afghans. Taliban got full control over Afghanistan, and only in the first months, the Taliban killed or forcibly disappeared nearly 500 former government officials. And just like that, the quality of life of an average Afghani fell off the cliff. Under Taliban rule, Afghanistan's economy has shrunk by 30%. Girls were prohibited from attending secondary school, while women were not only banned from attending and teaching at universities, but also they were prevented from working and banned from parks and gyms. And they cannot travel anywhere without male company. Taliban also reintroduced public flogging and public executions. And I think we don't have to mention the intimidation of journalists and restrictions of press freedoms. Taliban basically took strict control over everything. In this state, Afghanistan remains until today, and the situation is worsening day by day. Afghanis are left behind, struggling to get food and basic needs, while Taliban has to solve its own problems, as it created the perfect environment for terrorist groups to thrive in. And these groups threaten the Taliban itself. Among the fastest growing ones are Al-Qaeda and ISIS-K, or the Islamic State in Khorasan, which stands behind the bombing of a mosque and the bombing of the Russian embassy, both in Kabul. All of these conditions hinder the progress of Afghanistan, and the world remains worried, as Afghanistan is becoming once again heaven for world terrorist groups. If you would like to learn more about our world, I recommend you to continue to this video next. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I will see you in the next one.